This is your chance to experience the NFL like never before. The Irish NFL show is touching down stateside, and we want you on the team. Explore iconic football towns: Chicago, Green Bay, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and make memories with fellow Irish NFL fans on the trip of a lifetime. We've partnered with Bernard Hayes Travel, a trusted travel partner with over 30 years' experience. We'll look after everything: flights, accommodation, transfers, match tickets, social events, and everything in between. An unforgettable experience. Picture yourself in the stands at Soldier Field, Lambeau, or MetLife, roaring on your team. Register your interest today at irishnflshow.com/tours. Don't just watch the game, live it. Oh, we lived it last weekend, and who wouldn't want to be heading stateside to soak up some of that atmosphere after the wildcard weekend that we had? Please do register your interest. Lots of people onto us, and we do really appreciate the support. Can't wait for the schedule to come out and get those trips into the calendar because, wow, really whetted the appetite over the weekend, gentlemen. And welcome to the Irish NFL Show's wildcard weekend recap in association with Quimbet. That was some weekend of football. Began early on Sunday evening as the Panthers put it up to the Rams and ended in the early hours of this morning with Patriots Chargers. We will get to all those games with the exception of Steelers Texans. Of course, at time we are recording is still 4 hours away at Acrisure, which you saw in the clip there at the start of the show. You can check out our instant reaction and, of course, check out the AV Club with Shane, Kieran and Ben on Wednesday as we break down that game and many other talking points besides. Kieran Boyle and Shane Brennan joining me, Conor Brophy, this evening as we look back on the NFL stopped calling Wildcard Weekend Super Wildcard Weekend, but they picked the wrong year to do it because, Shane, and we'll give you the floor to start off with. We had a pretty great weekend of games. Like for once, that prefix would have been absolutely justified. And sometimes the wild card weekend can let you down a little bit because some of those back markers, the teams that you kind of want to see out of the playoffs, if we're all being honest, don't justify their position, and people like me who are set in their ways start grumbling about why do we let 7 seeds into the playoffs in the first place. If we'd no 7 seeds in this playoffs, we would have lost 2 of the best games of the weekend, and we will get to Rams, Panthers, and Bears, Packers a little bit later on. But let's start with Chargers, Patriots. You called it out when we were live from the Graco Media Studios a couple of weeks ago, saying that Patriots are going to be one and done unless they get the Chargers. That's the one scenario in which I can see the Chargers winning. I'll be honest, when I was picking the games for our playoff brackets, I picked the Patriots solely on how confident you were that they'd beat the Chargers. And sure enough, as advertised, didn't really take them much trouble to do so. I mean, they didn't pile it on. They didn't destroy the Chargers, but they were never really in it, were they? Like, the Patriots just had their number.
Yeah, I guess, but so before I get into this game, we have to sort of sit back and just soak in the fact that we've just seen one of the greatest weekends of NFL football that you're ever likely to see. Like the first 3 games, the team that was ahead at the 2-minute warning ended up losing. None of these games ended up being decided by more than 4 points. And then we stay up so late. I stayed up to 4:30 in the morning to reach this crescendo, and we get this defensive battle that never really got going on either side, on either offense. But what was interesting about this battle, I mean, the scoreline says Patriots 16, Chargers 3. That made the Patriots look like they're in more control of this than they were. But at the same time, I was never sitting back and thinking that the Patriots would lose this game. It was the nature of how it went. It's funny, when I was sitting back and you were referring to my lack of confidence in the Patriots' playoff chances other than playing the Chargers, and my source of that was how well the defense was going to play. And I thought the offense might be able to show up. And it was in reverse as what happened here. Both these sides had pretty good defensive outings. But the problem was the Patriots defense showed up greater. Christian Gonzalez had probably the best game of his career until he walked off injured. We're unsure as to how he'll get on later in the week. And the Chargers offense just couldn't get anything done. I mean, you look at their third down efficiency, they were 1 of 10. Their offensive line problems, which as we were anticipating, were key. Their run game went absolutely nowhere. Herbert couldn't get anything done on the run game either as well. And that's the difference that was just the main difference is just the ability of each quarterback to actually get the run game, because Drake May wasn't able to get to complete a lot of passes last night. At the end of the first half, he had a 40% pass completion rate, and we were talking so much about how important, how good he has been in that. There was one deep pass he played to Douglas, I think, in the second half, which 9 times out of 10 he overthrows it. He was just had an off day in terms of his throwing ability, but his running ability, which they've been protecting him from against for periods of the regular season, because hey, you don't want to get him hurt, you won't want him getting hurt. This is joy of the playoffs. Some of these things the teams are holding back, they're letting unleash at times when they need it, and that was the difference. Herbert couldn't do that. Herbert didn't have the opportunity to use his wheels and to make those playoff clinching plays, which you need to do on your feet as a quarterback in the 21st century NFL. And Drake May could do that. And in the end of the day, that was the key difference. Look, I have to say, as a Patriots fan, I'm quite happy coming out of that one. If you can win a game when your offense is not playing at its best, when the strength of your team did not show up in the way that it does, and statistically speaking, you could look at it and say, look, it was still, the Patriots still got over 380 yards, over 235 in passing. In the second half, there was a lot more to like from the passing game in terms of just being able to pick out a couple of guys, a couple of key moments, but it still never really caught fire. But you never looked at this game and thought, I think the Chargers have a chance to win this year. And that's credit to the Patriots defense. They shut things down and kept things quiet all the way through. So, look, it'll be interesting to go. There's one quick thing I want to touch on before we move on, though, right? The way the referees call this game, I think, will change how we look towards the next game, because there was a lot of face masks penalties that the Patriots just weren't called for. And I'll be interested to know whether that will end up working against their favor next week. I'm going to put an early shout out now to the Patriots getting called for 2 or 3 face mask penalties next week against the Steelers or the Texans, whoever wins tonight. But
sure, Mike Vrabel will be on to the next dirty trick by that stage. Like he's always ahead of the chains on that stuff. Like, it wouldn't be Mike Vrabel and it wouldn't be the Patriots if they weren't looking for the edge.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if the referees aren't going to call it, that's kind of the way the game is played. Such is the Patriot way. Yeah. Look, I mean, I'll shout out to the defense, to the scheme. A lot of really solid individual performances here. Not the most entertaining game in the world. I was going to send a text in the group chat this morning saying, lads, don't bother watching the 40-minute review. Just watch the 12-minute YouTube highlights, because it was kind of boring for most of the first 3 quarters. But the Patriots go marching on, and I'm looking forward to the divisional round.
I do occasionally, Kieran, like me, a defensive battle in the playoffs. Like, it can't all be about high-flying offense. Sometimes you like to see a team digging in its heels and doing the old Gandalf, you shall not pass. That was the Patriots last night. They got in Herbert's face. Their best defenders lived up to their reputations. And we see this in the playoffs every year. You see something that you learn something about these teams, and they learn something about themselves when there isn't going to be a tomorrow unless they fight to get there, and they take the shackles off. They can step up, and sometimes we see teams get whacked when they do that as well, because the other team that they're playing against can expose their weaknesses. But I saw something that I liked in the Patriots last night. I saw that this is a team that can actually make a run here, because they're not going to beat themselves.
Well, I had the Patriots going on a deep run, and you're right. It definitely wasn't an offensive kind of slugfest. I mean, there's a crazy stat from the Chargers from the 1 minute 11 mark in the second quarter until the 5:39 mark of the fourth quarter. Chargers did not record a single passing yard, and that's the whole game kind of in a nutshell. There was not a lot of action, but I want to kind of touch on the you mentioned earlier the Patriots defense. I want to touch on the free agents they brought in. I think they've made a huge difference. I mean, we saw Vrabel get his lip busted up by one of them. Big Milton Williams coming in from the Eagles. And when you talk about
how much, agents, by the way, did that little moment tell us everything that we needed to know about the Patriots for this season? Like, I look back to that all the time and I think, well, we knew who they were.
Well, yeah, and they love Vrabel. You can see that. I mean, Vrabel, not just being an old Pat, but you can see he looks like a dude. He looks like a dude's dude. He looks like a guy you'd drink, a case of beer with and watch some football, watch some old videos on YouTube and just hang out. And that's what endears him to the rest of this crew, you talk about people like Spillane, Clavon Chasen. They're the difference for this Patriots team. I mean, rock solid on defense, and like I said, I've got them, going on a nice little run. I do want to say the O-line struggled a little bit. I know we didn't really touch on the sacks, but I mean, May got sacked 5 times, Herbert got 6, but. Little concerned about Will Campbell. I know he's not fully, who is healthy at this stage of the season, but he had a rough outing last night. He was pushed around a little bit, and that led to make, kind of scrambling a little bit. So I'm going to be watching him over the course of whoever wins the game tonight. But I'd be a little concerned for the Pats in that regard. But everything else,
he's been having a rough season though, and I know it's a steep learning curve in that position. Yeah. And defensive ends are ruthless in this league, and he's got some great pass rushers coming at him in the AFC. If you're targeted as the weak link of the offensive line, it never rains, but it pours.
Yeah, and he's got to put on a little bit of meat too. A couple more pizzas his direction might help for the Patriots. But just the rest of the team. I mean, Stevenson was great. I mean, just bursting out runs left, right, and center. I mean, he was to all intents and purposes, the offense. I know Boutte had 66 yards, and May had 66 on the ground too. But I don't think there was any real doubt that the Patriots were going to eke it out, even though it went down to the late Henry touchdown. But I mean, the Chargers. I mean, yet again, Herbert. I don't want to say flatters to deceive because you got to root for him. He's been balling. He's injured. There's not a lot of weapons around him. Nobody really showed up. I mean, he was the leading rusher last night. Vidal had, I think, 34 yards or 31 on the ground. Hampton was a non-factor. Gadsden, the rookie, I mean, it's a lot to ask for him in a playoff game, but nobody really showed up. I mean, they had a couple. McConkey had 32 yards. There just wasn't enough consistency on offense for anybody to help Herbert. And he was, again, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, just trying to make things happen. And it just wasn't happening against that Patriots defense. They're just suited up and booted up, and they weren't letting Herbert do anything to them last night.
Well, let's move on to Rams-Eagles, Shane. This is a game that, where the Niners-Eagles. What am I talking about? Niners-Eagles. This is a game where most of us had called it, and certainly myself and Kieran will have to put our hands up here and do some soul searching in Philly's way, because I thought, with no disrespect to the Niners at all, that this is just going to be a bridge too far. Short rest. They're banged up. They lost Kittle during the game as well. Terrible injury. And, that's an awful shame for a player who had struggled to stay fit this season to go down in a big moment like that. And the playoffs are poor that we won't see him greatest tight end of the game right now in their match. And by the way, they got absolutely screwed by the league here too. They're on short rest again. They play Saturday next week. Kyle Shanahan had said it in his presser after the game, maybe in fairness, we might get a Sunday game here, and to take account of the fact that we've been on short rest, and they get a quick turnaround again. So not great for them. But like we talked about why Kyle Shanahan is a very good shout, or should be a very good shout for a coach of the year with everything that they've dealt with. I watched in detail just a couple of short weeks ago the Bears play the Niners and go up and down the field on this Niners defense. Niners couldn't stop anything that the Bears were doing, and the same applied in the other direction, by the way. They're down to their 5th, 6th, and 7th linebackers. You're looking up the depth chart going, who is Garrett Wallow? And haven't had a pass rush for most of the season. They have, Bosa out. They have Fred Warner out, of course, gone for the season. They're losing people left, right, and center. It's walking wounded out there, and they find the pressure when they need it, and they discombobulate the Eagles, and they knock them off track. Eagles fans doing as Eagles fans do, booing their own team, who by that stage were only a point down when the Boo Birds started raining down. Got to take a hard look at yourself there, Philadelphia. That's not how you support your defending champion Philadelphia Eagles. Sorry, that is how you support your defending champion Philadelphia Eagles. You're on an island with that one, my friends. But Niners found a way. Kyle Shanahan dips into his bag of tricks. The most delightful razzle-dazzle play for that touchdown pass to Christian McCaffrey, who, again, does Christian McCaffrey type things. You need me, I'm there.
And this is the thing. This is a theme that we're going to talk about across all of these playoff teams. The Patriots, the 49ers, the Rams, and on the inverse effect, the Eagles. The Patriots' motto is, we all we got. And that's exactly what the Niners are bringing forward to the world. They look around to each other. They don't care about the injuries. They don't care that George Kittle got taken off in this game, and a huge blow to their offense, taken off at a point when they were behind, by the way. They're looking around to each other and saying, we all we got. We have to find a way to do this. And that's why Kyle Shanahan, I think, has been managed to coach a really, really good year this year. And that's always been the way. Not only him, but Robert Saleh on the defense as well. Doesn't matter who's there. That's always been the way. And for me, that first play in the fourth quarter, when they had that razzle-dazzle to get the touchdown pass, was the ultimate vote of confidence in our guys to say, look, it's here for the taking. The Philadelphia fans are on their own backs because they're booing their own team, even though they are winning. Let's just go and take it. I don't care if Kittle isn't here. I don't care if we're banged up on defense. There's a job to be done here, and we can get it done. And it makes the Niners team relatively dangerous now going up to Seattle, because I was sitting back looking ahead of next week and thinking that Seattle would hate to see the Rams coming in, because I think 9 times out of 10 the Rams pick off Sam Darnold, as they have done 6 times already this year. But this Niners team with this sort of sense of destiny behind them, they're now coming in with the revenge arc as well against Seattle. It's going to be a really, really dangerous prospect. But just to revert back to yesterday's game, talk about the difference in mentality and can-do attitude, because in the first half, both of these teams had that real disjointed sense. You had the 49ers giving out to each other because they were out of formation. It just didn't seem like it was going right. Brock Purdy letting a couple of interceptions go, both to Quinton Mitchell, I believe I'm right in saying. Like, those are moments when your offense can collapse and your team can start fighting amongst themselves, and you let the game go away from you. Especially those 2 interceptions, coming at key moments. One of them was when they were 17-16 up in the fourth quarter. The defense held on to only let a field goal instead of a touchdown, and they came back to win. There's a cultural moment there. Compare it to what's happening in Philadelphia. The cultural moment is Big Dom is separating your head coach and your top receiver from fighting with each other. And then AJ Brown drops a couple of key balls later on in the game, and people are wondering what's happening there. He was been asking all year for more passes to come his direction, and he completely lets it slip, because it was completely disjointed there. The fans are on their own back. The coach doesn't like the players, doesn't like the quarterback. You remember last year, like, how hard Saquon Barkley had to work to get that team to realize the opportunity they were in, that they could actually push forward and win a Super Bowl, quit the bitching and start playing football. It worked for them last year. It's just run out of road this year in terms of how coherent that offense has been. There's been so many flashpoints over the course of the season where it felt like it was all going to explode. And last night was not a collapse. I feel like that's being unfair to how well the 49ers play, particularly in the fourth quarter, to say it was an Eagles collapse. But the Eagles beat themselves in the way that you were referring to earlier, Connor, that the Patriots aren't going to be a team who beat themselves. This 49ers team aren't going to be a team who beats themselves. The Eagles beat themselves last night. I think that's going to ask a lot of questions as to what the future looks like now in Philadelphia.
Kieran, the Eagles pissed me off, and not just because they busted my playoff bracket, which was all going swimmingly up to that point, but it's just the waste of talent there. Like, you and I were both talking about this last week, and we both fell into the same trap, and now we're both hoist by our own petard. Yeah, as soon as they flip the switch, they're going to be dangerous. What's going to stop the Eagles in these playoffs? They're set up just the way they want to be. They got just enough of a chip on both shoulders to keep them balanced. They have all they need. If you talk about the Patriots saying we got, the Eagles got more than they need. And they just aren't able to line things up, or weren't, at least this season, able to line things up in the way that would have delivered them to the promised land, when actually things might have been opening up for them. I think they're going to look at this as a really big opportunity missed. I mean, this is what they would have wanted, to welcome a team that's, down to its last fumes, really, lost key players across the board, and they just couldn't get it done.
No, I mean, I'll throw my hands right up. I thought the Eagles were going to flick the switch once it got to the postseason, and all the problems would be papered over, and everyone would get along and play from the same hymn tune. But I mean, I don't know. Like you said, this is a generational team, and it's just been wasted. I mean, I know they completely and utterly dominated the Super Bowl last year, and maybe there's that kind of lethargic mentality that crept in. It's like, we don't have to work as hard as everybody else. Things are going to be a lot easier if we just chill. And obviously that's not the way in sports or in life in general. So, I mean, I got to think too that Howie's going to be pulling some strings and getting rid of a couple of people and looking around at that roster and be like, there's dead weight here, there's dead weight there. But the thing is, I mean, nobody really, I mean, I certainly didn't see it after the Seattle game. I thought the Niners were a good story, and they were gamers, and they would, put it up to the Eagles to an extent. But I think everyone thought that once the lights got a little bit brighter, that's when Brown would step up, and that's when Hurts would really, Hurts had barely any action on the ground yesterday. I mean, he only 262 totally through the air. He had a couple of touchdowns, but he didn't light the fire that this team needed. And I know Saquon had a lot on the ground, but I mean, look, we all saw the clips of Sirianni arguing with Brown. I mean, I guess the problems are way deeper than anybody thought. I mean, there's only so much you can paper over, but I'm stunned that the Eagles lost. I really am. I thought they were primed. I mean, this is a generational team. I was talking last week about Quinton Mitchell. I know Purdy threw the pick to him, but this guy hasn't given up a touchdown the entire year. And when I just got back from the Jags game, and the first play I saw was Quinyon Mitchell picking off Purdy. I was like, why? He hasn't given up a touchdown all year. Why would you throw to him?
Yeah.
But he's just a level of he's just the talent that's one absolute megastar on this team that is. I don't want to say it's wasted, because I'm sure there's 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 going to be a problem
Every
next year.
player we called out, though, Blankenship got embarrassed on one of the other touchdowns, just completely exposed, just let a guy blow by him. It's really maddening to watch, because, to Shane's point, and I think it's a really good point, there are other teams in these playoffs who have nowhere near the talent that the Eagles have at their disposal. The Patriots, the Bears, who are still in, the Panthers, who went out, but who dug in and gave it everything they had, with a much less talented roster than the one they were up against, and a hell of a lot less talented a roster than the one we just go out without firing a shot last night. I mean, they were handled by the Niners.
Yeah, and it's got to come down to hunger too. You got to think that that's part of it. I mean, they're fat off the win last year. I know there's issues with Patullo and the play calling, and obviously the players don't really respect or get along with Sirianni. But I mean, a lot of teams, and I mean, look in the past. I mean, nobody really liked Parcells, or I'm sure people didn't like Belichick. But it doesn't seem like these players can just get around that and kind of rally together. It just seems like there's a malaise around the team. They just have it's just. I got to say, I thought they were just going to get past all that nonsense from the regular season and just turn it on. I'm very, very surprised that they got knocked out, but huge credit to the Niners. I mean, just fought the whole way. I mean, obviously, when you got somebody like McCaffrey, you can run and catch. That's a huge factor too. And an ex high school, a very highly rated high school quarterback in Juwan Jennings, who made that nice throw as well. I mean, when you got pieces like that, but I mean, the story for me is, and the story today in sports news is about what's going on in Philadelphia and how that it collapsed to such an extent. I mean, you got to think AJ Brown's out the door, and who else is going to follow him? Because Howie's going to look at this roster and go, you know what? I thought it was good this year. We're going to tear it all down, and we're going to get a couple of pieces in and switch things up a little bit. And who knows what that means for Hurts? I mean, maybe they'll start making a move there, but a great kind of offseason in store, and I'm sure the Eagles will give us.
Oh, AJ Brown to New England. That's the play. Mike Vrabel's favorite receiver busted up the GM head coach relationship when he was in at the Titans. Things never recovered from Vrabel's perspective from that point on. Yeah, that writes itself. Difficult receiver goes to New England, has a career season. Where have we seen that one before? Right, we'll take a quick break before we get to Bills Jags.
Great odds, you're in control, you always bet responsibly, and you're not afraid to choose alternatives. That's why you bet with QuinnBet. Build your own unique football bets with Create a Bet. Winning team, first goal scorer, number of goals, the possibilities are endless. And with a 4-star Trustpilot customer service rating, why not give QuinnBet a shot? QuinnBet, we bet you love it.
We have been rhapsodizing about the wildcard weekend, but as every football fan knows it's the divisional weekend, which is the weekend of the year for watching football. And where better to watch it at the Arlington Hotel and Bar, our partners on Bachelor's Walk, just on O'Connell Bridge. A great place to settle in for the evening on Saturday or Sunday next week and watch those divisional round games and come back for the championship and indeed for the Super Bowl watch party a couple of weeks later. You'll be there welcomed with open arms by Kieran and the team. And the food offering is spectacular there. We do love the Arlington Hotel and Bar, a great place to watch a game. Please do check it out. Kieran, you were watching the game in the comfort of the press seats at Everbank Stadium at the weekend as the Bills came to town and justified their road favourites tag. It was hard won and it was a hard-earned victory in the end. This is another great game, back and forth. Jags left it all out there, just didn't quite have enough to complete the fourth quarter 2-minute drive that they needed to get the win. Interception turns out to be a bit of an anticlimax and ends the game on the spot. We were hoping maybe we'd see some fireworks from Trevor Lawrence. I know the faithful at Everbank Stadium certainly were hoping for that, but didn't quite turn out their way.
Yeah, huge event. I mean, geez, just the traffic getting there alone. I mean, it was like half of North Florida was going to this game. Huge atmosphere, great vibe around the place, and I mean, I had the Jags down. I thought this was going to be a nice little run for them in the playoffs, but they came up against Josh Allen. I mean, Josh Allen he was the difference. I mean, just being able to put that team on his back. I spoke last week about the kind of lack of weapons he has on offense other than Knox and Kincaid. And then you're bringing people in like Brandon Cooks. I mean, where's he been? I mean, Gabe Davis, a former Jag that went back to Buffalo. I mean, I don't want to say he's getting guys off the street, but he's not exactly got a stellar roster to kind of help him out. But he made it happen. I mean, it's Josh Allen. He put the team on his back and he just did what he does. He's now this is 6 playoff games. He's got 6 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in his last 6 playoff games. So, I mean, the stats are there. I think this was his 14th playoff game. And he just keeps rolling. 31 total TDs in those games too. For the Jags, I mean, they didn't do a huge amount wrong. I mean, they ran the ball to an extent. I would have liked them to have run the ball a little bit more. I always say when ETN is 100, I mean, he didn't have 100 rushing yards. He had 116 total yards. And between him and Tootin, I thought that was going to be enough. But I feel like the Jags kind of got away from the run a little bit. It's interesting that Cook actually had more carries than Tootin and ETN combined, which I found a little strange. But it feels like that Trevor was kind of forcing it a lot. I was saying in the chat that there was at least 4 to 5 throws that could have been picked off and could have been disastrous. So I think he was skirting a little bit. He was getting away from chill confidence, I don't want to say check down, but 7-8 yard throws. And he was getting a little bit more adventurous, which, that Bills pass defense is pretty damn good. And I think he was flirting with danger a little bit too much yesterday. And combined with that, with getting away from the run a little bit, I thought the Jags were, that was my only kind of gripe with it. But, great game. Fourth quarter lead changes are always great in the playoffs. Phenomenal atmosphere. It was great.
There were 4 fourth quarter lead changes in that game. That's a playoff record. And actually, I heard on the NFL Daily podcast earlier today a great stat which really made me smile. There were 12 fourth quarter lead changes on wildcard weekend. That's the highest number that there have ever been in any entire playoffs. It happened on the first weekend. If there's one fourth quarter lead change for the rest of the playoffs, it's a record. And it just stunning. And to your point earlier, Shane, like really exciting games. Kieran, I thought what I saw from Jacksonville, to your point, they leave with great credit. They're obviously going to be devastated. You host a home playoff game after a drought and you want it to go well and you want to win and be advanced to the next round. I see a recipe for sustainable success. Like I wouldn't be going into this offseason downcast if I was in Duval. I see complementary football being played. Defensively, I thought Trayvon Walker looked for the first time like a blue chip college prospect. Looked like a number 1 overall pick. There's balance there. There's playmakers on in every key position, and you don't need an awful lot to imagine. You can squint your eyes and see this team going on a deep playoff run. They don't need to change an awful lot. They're in really good territory right now.
Oh, absolutely, and the coaching staff is perfectly positioned to keep moving forward with this. I do think they got to bulk up a little bit in the wide receiver core. I mean, Parker Washington, as good as he was, this guy's really come alive this year. This was a kick returner last year, kind of relegated to preseason games and kind of kick returns. So he's definitely taken that mantle. They might need a little upgrade at tight end. I think Strange was good, but I think he was kind of overachieving this year. But you're right. I mean, they're all primed. I mean, the coaches were great. I mean, Campanelli's has done a phenomenal job. And just the kind of advancement of Trevor Lawrence in this season right after that bye week. I mean, a different player. I did see him kind of leaning back towards some of his, like I said earlier, some of his old habits. I think he was a little bit reckless with the football. But the only real kind of argument I can give against the Jags is they threw the ball too much. And obviously, when you throw the ball too much, you give them the ball right back. And I think that was a problem. They were giving the ball back too much to Josh Allen, just letting him dictate terms out there. I mean, that throw to Cooks towards the end was just phenomenal. I mean, he's getting battered and bruised. He just kind of, I was in the locker room afterwards and he was just sat there with his legs just, up in the air and just almost like he'd gone through a battle. Joey Bosa came over and gave him a big hug, and you could tell they were beat up to hell. You could see it in the body, just a huge kind of, that Jags defense was ferocious. Like I said, Walker and Hines Allen. Devin
I mean,
Lloyd just
they made
swarming.
they made Josh Allen pay for every single
Yeah.
yard. Like they
I mean, it's
left it
where
all out there. Like he got a lick on him every time he was releasing that ball. They couldn't, no more could they do. And what I was particularly impressed with the Jags defense was after what looked like back-breaking turnovers, they just dug their heels in. Like they didn't let the Bills capitalize on those short fields and those turnover momentum swings. That's a really difficult thing to do. Your defense come fired up off the bench and just say, no, we're going to get it back.
Yeah, I mean, Everbank in the last 2 months is where, running games go to die. I mean, James Cook only had 46 on the ground. Allen, he had, I think he had 33 rushing yards too. I mean, that's typically what happens to teams when they go to Jacksonville. The run game just kind of comes to a halt, and that front four and that linebacker crew. I mean, Devin Lloyd was everywhere yesterday. But I mean, that's really like I said, the only real kind of knock I can give on the Jags is throwing the ball too much and giving the ball back to Allen. I think they could have run it a lot more. I think they got away from the run towards the end, and that could have helped them. But, I mean, who knows? Listen, the bottom line is they left it all out there. Maybe, if Little had made that kick right at halftime, it could have been a different conversation. But when you go up against Josh Allen, you got to play flawless football. You can't give him any opportunity to come into it. And unfortunately, pushing towards the end, Lawrence just got a little reckless and was picked off by Cole Bishop, and that was ball game. But they'll be back next year. I mean, what's going to be great is, I mean, I don't want to say I'm rooting for the Texans tonight, but I think a strong Texans team is what's needed in that South Division too, because it's going to be a while before Tennessee is really any good, and hopefully the Colts can kind of regroup too. But I can see the Texans and Jags just going at it for the next couple of years, which would be a great spectacle for everybody, me as well. So great credit to the Jags. They left it all out there, and they'll be back next year.
Shane, in terms of the quarterback battle, Kieran's touched on it already and called out some really key points. Very little difference between, and it's not like Trevor Lawrence goes out there having lost the game for the Jags. Let's not make that mistake. There's not an awful lot more he could have done than what he did. But the difference for me is Josh Allen has long since learned, and we're seeing the version of Josh Allen now that knows when to keep the glasses on and be Clark Kent, and knows when to be Superman. And he knows he doesn't need to play the alter ego the whole way through the game. He knows the control with which he releases it when he needs to, and with between him and the coaching staff, what they've created here is it's just a perfect balance for me. I was looking at the passing chart that they flashed up on the screen in the first half when they were finding the yards hard to come by, but he was just taking what the defense gave him, just keeping the chains moving, 2-3 yard gains, just picking out those receivers, getting forward momentum. There was nothing explosive to be had because there was nothing explosive there. We say that the Jacksonville pass rush was in his face all day long, and each of those yards was coming at a cost. But when he needed to, he could dip into his bag of tricks. I mean, the throw that Kieran referenced earlier to the one he talked about earlier. Which receiver did that go to? Help me out.
I'm on mute here. To Brandon Cooks down the left-hand line.
Cooks, yeah, sorry.
Yes, yeah. I had that queued up in my notes as the real sort of like clutch moment there. So.
That's a lead, and that's a throw that only he and maybe 2 or 3 other quarterbacks, not named Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, can make. He's got it all, and this was the perfect stage for him to play on.
What was interesting is the sort of they talk about in golf, like when you're in Augusta on the Sunday, are you selecting the right shots? And that's been the big problem, I think, with the Bills in terms of their sort of play selection and shot selection. Like, are they running it too hard? Are they passing it too deep too often? Their shot selection seemed a lot better yesterday. That pass there came at the right moment at the right time. Getting just enough pressure was coming up against Josh Allen where the Jags are sort of lulled into a false sense of security. And he found his man and hit him down the line. And the run plays as well. I mean, we talked about in the first half how he sort of ran into a brick wall of the Jacksonville defense, put himself under a lot of physical strain, but to get a rushing touchdown. And then later on in the second half, get probably the most successful pushes of the tush going, considering that the Bills are one of the teams that voted against the tush push. But nearly got them over the line, managed to get them 10 yards on a 4th down. And again, like it's one of those very, very key moments in a battle.
Speaking of that, Shane, because you've queued it up nicely here. Bills went out last season because they couldn't get a yard when they needed a yard, and because they became predictable, and they ran exactly the way the Kansas City Chiefs expected them to run, and the Chiefs were waiting for them. And again, it didn't go that way because they get the stop and they get the turnover on the Jags' would-be game-winning drive. But they had the ability to burn more clock than they did at the goal line. And, we saw the Patriots do this where they refused to score just so they could eat up a little bit more on the clock. And I know you can go both ways on this one. I've heard people say, you got to score when you have the opportunity to score, because the most important thing is to actually put the ball in the end zone. You can't get too clever about it. But sorry, if you can't get the ball in from a yard, you're not going to win any ball games anyway. You left the Jags and Trevor Lawrence with a timeout and a minute to come back the other way. You're dicing with death a little bit here. There were other ways they could have approached that situation.
Yeah, but I think the Jags pretty much let them walk in at that point anyway. I mean, that's certainly the sense of how the Jags are managing that. I said, listen, you just give us the ball back and let us take it. And look, like eventually you can get to a point as a team where you can sort of metagame that to a certain extent, because you have been there and you have done it. With the Bills, I think it's a case of, listen, just take the points now, because you just I don't know whether Sean McDermott again hasn't won a playoff game on the road with Josh Allen. We'll be looking at that and saying, listen, if we try to go to run on the first down and let the ball, let the ball fumble at the 1 yard line, like what happened to the Ravens against the Bengals a couple of years ago, let it run back against them, it will forever be a curse against his and their name. So I can understand why they just went for it and trust the defense to do the job, which they have proven they can do, and they end up getting the interception. History will call them right because they managed to get the right play at the right time. And I'm not knocking Trevor Lawrence on that particular interception. I think that was genuinely a good defensive play. My only worry about the Bills, though, is just that, we're talking about the physicality there. I mean, there's a great video that Kieran got of Sean McDermott yesterday, talking about how much of a warrior Josh Allen is. They're talking about today. Gabe Davis is a torn ACL. I know the Bills are expecting Curtis Samuel to come back into that setup, but they're saying that Josh Allen is quote unquote sore. I imagine he is. Like he had to deal with a lot of physical pain. It was a very, very physical game. And look, football is a physical game anyway. But considering that your X factor is very much the quarterback, the running back is very good, but he's not Christian McCaffrey. And the wide receivers, we talk about how well Josh Allen does with his core wide receivers, who are good, not great. In the same way that Patrick Mahomes has won Super Bowls with wide receivers of that quality. I just hope that by the time they go into Denver next week, which is going to be a tremendously physical game, as it always is with Denver on a week's rest, no less, what effect that will have. But in terms of just the key fine margins, I mean, it's really is the small things. It's getting the 2 4th down conversions when the Jags couldn't get theirs. It's the defense. It's trusting your defense with a minute to go, even though there's been a lot of changes in the fourth quarter. And it's that play on the left of Brandon Cooks that really was clutch. Tony Romo did a very good job of breaking down why that was such a great play for him to spot out. You could barely even see the receiver on the left-hand side and picked him out with the with the bullet, which could have been laser guided. So yeah, I think this was a real sort of show it game for the Josh Allen to make sure that you can prove to the world that you're Super Bowl ready. And they look about as Super Bowl ready as they have been.
Kieran, our penultimate game of our roundup was won by a team that comes from a city that starts with a C, ends with an O, and has a hickag in the middle. We're talking about the Bears.
Wow, what a game. Jeez, where do you start with this one? I mean, this, of all the great games we had over the weekend, this is probably the standout. Just the theater, the snow before the game, which unfortunately stopped by the time kickoff.
I'm going to make a public service announcement here. Please, City of Chicago Bears, do not build a stadium with a roof on it. I know you want Super Bowls and you want Final Fours. We want snow games. We want games that are affected by the weather in January. You want a home field advantage. It's romantic. It's beautiful. It's just so evocative.
Yeah, I mean, it was theater. It was scene. Whatever phrase you want to put on it. I mean, we just got off the end of the Panthers game, which was we'll get to in a minute. But I mean, Saturday night, great crowd. Everyone's raucous. A huge rivalry. Only the third time they've met in the postseason. Just storylines, everywhere. And then as soon as the game is kicked off, the crowd is just out of it because the Packers are just rolling and they're running up and down the field. And, there's the pan in the stadium and pan in the crowd, and there's just disbelief, despondency, and just people just, almost thinking about, let's bail at halftime. But what a game. I mean, geez, from being up at 21-3, I mean, where do you start with this? There's so many storylines. What I do want to bring up, and I brought this up in the chat. If you remember when the camera was panning around to Jordan Love, and I can't remember the wide receiver he was standing beside, but they were joking and they were laughing, they were almost high-fiving. And I was like, and I put in the chat, I said, Chicago's winning this because I've been watching football for so long that anytime that you see a team, and I've seen it in college a lot, but in college you kind of give them a pass because the kids and they're not as mature. But these guys definitely, I know this Chicago scheme different. They switch things up in the second half. But when you see something like that, that's a real kind of warning sign for me, because that's when real coaching has to kick in. There should have been a coach saying, hey, this is not over. This is not even close to over. You all know that the Bears have come back 6 times in the season. I don't know what anyone's doing here. There's a whole lot of games still to go. I thought there was too much of a relaxation on the Packers end. I thought, I think they just thought they were going to coast through to the second half, and obviously we saw what happened in the second half. But notwithstanding the Bears switching everything up and just stonewalling the Packers in the second half, the Pack couldn't get anything going at the start of the second half, and the Bears just slowly crept into it. The field goal to make it 21-6. Yeah, the crowd was like, yeah, it's a field goal, but I mean, it's just phenomenal. And, I'll talk about Williams too, but just that the coaching, the surrounding cast, from Loveland, Burden, players that have contributed during the year, but the big guy stepped up. And skeptical, I wouldn't say I've been skeptical about Williams. I think I've really just been waiting for him to show the potential he's been showing for so long from college to the pros. And I mean, what a gala, what an event he had on Saturday night. He hit all the marks. He got all the numbers in the lottery. I mean, he just played his butt off, and what a performance. I mean, capped off by that throw to Odunze. I put it in Twitter. I put it on. I said, you'll never see a better throw this season or any other season. Just the poise, just the composure.
I can't remember a throw that good. I can remember one that I would compare. There was a Lamar Jackson one to the Bengals during one of their 2 shootouts last season, where he escapes about 3 tackles, scrambles to his right, and throws back against the grain, on a jump pass to the end zone. But this one, 4th and 8 for all the marbles, because that's game right there. If it falls incomplete and they turn the ball over on downs, or worse still, it gets picked off because there's 4 Packers defenders in the vicinity. The degree of difficulty there, like a lot of quarterbacks, they're not even going to attempt that throw because it's just not in their athletic or arm strength wheelhouse. It's just not possible. It's crazy what he can do, and he can madden you sometimes because he can do the simple things wrong. I've been saying it all season. Why is it that he can't clean up? But the stuff that he does when he does it well is just jaw dropping. And yeah, to your point, you're like, the question we ask about any quarterback going into the playoffs is this a quarterback that you win with or that you win because of? And we've answered that question now.
Yeah, and I mean, somebody had answered on Twitter, what a throw, and I said the only one that came to mind that I could equate it to was Eli to Mario Manningham in the 2012 Super Bowl, the Super Bowl 46. Just clutch, had to happen, gotta have it, no other option. And I mean, he just put the team on his back. We talk about quarterbacks doing that, but it was all Williams in that second half, just bringing everybody else into the fold. Monangai didn't have a huge game. I mean, he had 37 yards on the ground. Loveland had a real nice game, helped him out a lot. DJ Moore chipped in as well. But, between Odunze, the supporting cast you got to love the Chicago team. I mean, I know the Packers I don't want to say they imploded, but, the first 4 possessions of the second half produced a total of 1 first down. I mean, that's where the game changed. And you can see the vibe changing. And it's when the crowd started getting into it more, and then they started to believe, and then the touchdown happens, and the throw to Odunze, and then just how it finished, just a phenomenal game. Just cinema, just scene. I mean, what else can you say about it? A phenomenal game.
Shane, we were sending around the WhatsApp group, or Brian sent around the WhatsApp group, this brilliant edit of Lose Yourself, the Eminem song that I know is a go-to hype track for a lot of people. And sometimes it's a go-to track from people when things are not going well. And it's one of those great pick you up, battle against adversity type. And we missed the lines from the playoffs this year. Obviously, how iconic was it to see Eminem at Ford Field when the Lions won their first playoff game two years ago in an age. But we were sharing, or Brian had shared the version where there's like 331 different movies and somebody's edited together the lyrics. So all of the lines come from movies. It's brilliant. It's worth, check it out on YouTube after you check out our own back catalog. But the line that hit me at halftime, because this earworm is still in my head, was snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. There goes gravity. It looked like the Bears had fallen to earth. And, at halftime, I'm thinking I might actually genuinely switch this off. Like I could see the Bears lose a playoff game and it's still a good season, but I can't watch my team get opened up like this, just taken apart by their deadliest rivals in prime time and just choke in the biggest game that they've played in years when there's been so much hope. And it just reminds you the most dangerous weapon you can have in the playoffs isn't Matthew Stafford, it isn't Christian McCaffrey, it isn't Nick Bonito, and it isn't Jackson Smith and Jigba. It's not a genius head coach, it's not an offensive mastermind or a defensive stalwart. It's belief.
And that's the thing. I mean, like it's amazing the difference in Chicago, and we watched so many games in the years past where they've had a lead and we're going to sit back and wait for them to find a way to make a mess of this. And it's the exact opposite that's happening here. You're watching back, and I didn't watch this live, but I watched this blind on the Sunday morning, and I was sitting back, and for most of the game I was like, Chicago have no right to be in this match. They can't, like, they're going for it on fourth down, not getting it done. Caleb Williams isn't connecting with his guys. They're letting too much space in the wide receiver room. But you're still sitting back in your chair and you're knowing this game isn't done yet. And it's funny, I mean, I don't want to take the magic out of what just happened. I'm struggling to figure out whether it is, as you said earlier, Connor, a feature, not a bug of what the Chicago team is, or whether it's just an unsustainable way of playing.
Well, I'll jump in right there. Sorry, but it is completely unsustainable, and I'd be the first one to acknowledge it. They can't keep living this way, and they can't keep doing it, and it will come to an end sooner rather than later if they keep playing this poorly on defense. But the one thing that gives me hope and gives me belief is, when I checked the stats just to confirm what I'd seen here, 22 teams in the NFL during the regular season averaged fewer than 25 points per game in the regular season, per game. It's not easy to score points in the NFL. It is an offense-focused league, but the defenses are so tight and the battle is so intense. It's not easy to score 25-plus points in the league. If you're doing that, you're going to win more games than you lose. Scoring 25 points in a quarter, there aren't many offenses in the NFL who can do that on their best day. The Bears can't do it. Like they only need a second to score, because when it clicks, it's insane. The combination between Ben Johnson's play calling, Caleb Williams' otherworldly ability, and the playmakers that he has around him, and that offensive line means that they are, in their moment, the most dangerous team in football. I don't think any team wants to go to Soldier Field and play a team that can play for 60 minutes, that's never out of the fight, and can just swing punches in bunches like that. Like it's 1, 2, 3 scores. Yeah, we think we can get it if we need it. That's insane.
It is. Insanity is the word I was going to say. And look, every team puts out these videos of post-game locker room. Here's what's happening, right? And a lot of it's not even worth watching. And some of you even wonder whether it's put on or it's Fugazi team spirit. You just none of that with Ben Johnson, what we saw from inside. I mean, what Colson Loveland was saying after the game, what Caleb Williams, I think, was saying in terms of the respect he has for teammates. I think the questions about whether he really wants to be in Chicago that was in the start of the season are pretty much gone now. And there's Ben Johnson himself. Like, what an absolute culture guy and genius roll into one do you have as a head coach. And look, you're right. No one's going to want to go to Chicago. The LA Rams haven't played a game this year in under 45 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 7 degrees Celsius to you. 4 degrees is when your car starts freezing over. I think it's about to be minus 11 by the time we get to Sunday night. Celsius, that is, in Soldier Field in the Windy City. So add that in, plus the sheer explosive nature and the never say die attitude, which has worked so well. That's 7 comebacks now in the last 2 minutes that the Bears have pulled off, and they could have pulled off maybe 3 or 4 more. That's talent, that's belief, and that's and again, look, culture is become a theme of this. That's just the nature of the new identity which they have. There's one final thing I will say though, right? One key difference between the Packers and the Bears here. The Packers only let up 2 penalties and they only gave up 5 yards of penalties. Sorry, the Bears only let up 2 penalties and gave up 5 yards of penalties. The Packers gave up over 60 yards of penalties and then got called 7 times. It's stupid things like that, which when one team aren't doing them, they're giving themselves a chance to be in the game. They're not beating themselves up. They're not kicking themselves, even at moments when they are 21-3 down. And look, you need to stay clean. You need to stay belief. You need to stay explosive, and that's all the Bears all have in spades.
Shane, I want to talk Rams-Panthers. Obviously, you mentioned the Rams, who the Bears will play in the divisional round next week. They overcame a really tough test from the Panthers, and it was the early game. They were 10.5-point favorites on the road. Nobody, including on this show, was really expecting that much from Carolina. And I want to start with you, and we have to hold our hands up a little bit here because we dunked on Bryce Young a couple of short weeks ago and how he wasn't the guy and how he wasn't up to it and how Carolina might move past him if they really wanted to thrive under Dave Canales' leadership with all the other nice pieces that are coming together. And that might still be the case, but he certainly did not let them down in a massive spot in the biggest game he's ever played in his career. He gave it everything he had. They gave it everything they had, and they gave us a great game to start wildcard weekend.
Remember when I used to watch sort of high school football when I was in Boston, and there's always a coach on the side that said, "You got heart, kid. You got heart, kid." And whenever you see somebody play it, even in the moment we're not fully expecting them to bring the juice, you know, they come with heart, and that's what we saw not only from Bryce Young but from the Panthers at large. I mean, I remember watching the first half of this game, and you're just waiting for the moment for the Rams to take control. And we were saying earlier is the fact that, look, the last time that these two teams played, the Panthers put up 31 points and they won the game. And I said, look, there's no chance of putting up 31 points here. And that's exactly what they managed to do. I don't know whether this is a healthy matchup that works in their favor. There's always teams who are, I guess, bogey teams or teams that you seem to work well against. And I'm not saying that to try and take away from the performance here. That might have helped in this equation. But just in terms of the how clean I thought that the Panthers played on offense. I mean, Bryce Young was able to hit players outside the numbers a couple of times, which again was something we were criticizing. We were in the studio a couple of weeks, Connor, getting over 264 yards.
And we don't want to take credit for that, but it is noticeable how he improved that aspect of his game when we called it out.
I think he took us. Did he take a screenshot of us and put it up on the dressing room wall? See,
the bulletin board material, yeah. Irish NFL show now providing bulletin board material for NFL teams. With the skipper and eagle over here.
You never know. I mean, if Cam Newton is commenting on posts I'm putting up, you never know what inspiration people are getting. But look, I mean, we'll talk about the Rams later on in the week when we preview their match and I guess their defensive frailties. But in terms of putting a bow on the Panther seasons, look, like, how many different parts are they away from being a more solid contender? We talk about the fact, look, they're 8-9, they're in the most winnable division. Their season kind of ended in a bit of a whimper in the way that it shouldn't have done. What world are we in where Bryce Young can be consistently the person he was against the Rams? Because we've seen that version of him come alive. I know people were saying, look, you know, like college Bryce and NFL Bryce having two different people. I've been talking about the fact that he physically just doesn't have the similar kind of traits that you see from a quarterback. But I don't know. I think with the right offensive line, and maybe they're definitely going to give him another year to try and, I guess, get up to that level. But the consistency is going to be key, and we'll talk about that next year. But yeah, I was certainly impressed by him, and for Jalen Coker as well for having a pretty, you know, getting a lot of targets. He ended up being the top guy, getting over 100 yards through the air and a touchdown. You know, we're looking like they really put it up to them and real offensive weapons here. Again, nobody was expecting anything from this Carolina team. I don't know whether they were coming into this sort of playing on house money or whether just the noise inside Carolina is very different to the way we all looked at this. But they definitely showed themselves up to be a team worthy of the playoffs, as many people were questioning whether they were in the first place, and they put up a very good game on Saturday.
Kieran, they asked the question and the Rams answered the question. It's the Rams that won this game. Let's not forget that. And Kieran O'Donovan mentioned it when we were doing the instant reaction on Sunday morning. That quote from Devontae Adams revealing what Matthew Stafford had said to him and to the other players in the huddle before they went down the field and won the game with a walk-off score. Let's go snatch their hearts out. That's cold.
Yeah, you got to be cold, and that's stuff you learn after playing 17 seasons in the NFL. I mean, he struggled for so long in Detroit. He's hungry for this. He really is. And like you said, Adams saw it in his eyes, and he got the other players. I mean, that's some cold-blooded stuff right there. But you have to be that in the playoffs. I mean, I don't want to say that the Rams kind of kept the Panthers in it a little bit, but they did have. The Rams had nine penalties for 83 yards, and there were some key penalties where they just gave the ball back or they gave the Panthers an extra first down. So that's something that they really got to clean up. And you could see how frustrated McVay was on the sideline. I mean, they can't do that going forward. They really can't because, I mean, this game to all intent, if Puka catches that ball towards the end of the second quarter, I mean, this could have turned out a lot different than it did. I think the Rams struggled a little bit, and when it got a little bit wet, but they it's an alien thing from SoFi, but I think the Rams really got to clean up what kind of kept them stumbling in it. I don't want to say it almost reverted back to the game in Week 13 where the Panthers won, but it got dangerously close to that. I will credit Young to an extent. I know I've bashed him a lot now. I continue to. I just don't think that Canales thinks that he's the man to lead this team. I think they're definitely going to pick up his option. I think it's his 5th-year option they're going to pick up. They may end up franchise tagging him for a minute, but I just think that Canales is looking around and saying, you know what, we're very close. I think we need a little bit more on from the quarterback. I mean, he went 21 for 40, not a hugely impressive kind of stat line there. I know he had a touchdown, and he got Coker involved and Leggett. But he was helped out by the run game. I mean, Hubbard had 2 touchdowns, 46 yards on the ground. I don't know what happened to Rico Dowdle. He had 5 carries for 9 yards. That's something that was a head scratcher. But for me, the Rams, the story is just how Stafford was able to bring on that DNA from playing so long, and that throw to Parkinson. I mean, I think that's their 17th tight end that they've used this year. I mean, I think we talk about 12, 13 personnel. It looks like they were doing 16 personnel out there. There were so many players with the number 80, starting with the number 80. It was just you always thought that the Rams were going to pull it out. And I think I will give credit to the Panthers. They punched above their weight. They kept it competitive. I didn't think it was going to be competitive at all. I was actually, looking at the TV guy to see what else was on because I thought this game was a goner. I will give Young some credit for bringing them back into it. I just don't think that Canales thinks that he's the guy going forward. But Rams just pulled on that DNA, and like I said, that throw to Parkinson was the dagger at the end, and probably I think the Panthers exhausted everything they had. It was a justified result in the end, and the Rams, like I said, they're gonna kind of lick their wounds and get back to the drawing board and figure some things out because Puka was not he was at it, but he wasn't at it to the extent that some of those catches. I know he had 111 yards and a touchdown, but I think he could have had a bigger output. But saying that, a win is a win, and you hear players talk about there's no style points in the postseason. There certainly wasn't in this game. It was gritty. It was a grind for the entire game. Panthers did their bit. They did their part, but Rams were the worthy winners in the end.
Yeah, Panthers definitely went out on their shields, but it is the Rams who survive and advance, as do we. We'll be back with the AV Club. We'll have our Thursday picks and preview of the divisional round game, mouth-watering prospects that they are, including that Rams-Bears game. We await the winner of Texans-Steelers tonight. Check back our instant reaction tomorrow to that game, and we'll be at you very soon on the Irish NFL Show.